By now, you should have figured out that Alpha Draft is a fantasy esports service where you can go and play CSGO contests. Using your corporeal form, you can act upon this digital world with agency to potentially win money. An abstraction used to purchase goods and services that is indirectly tied to actual materials of value in the tangible realm of existence. You can play contests for free, or you can roll up your Skrilla, play with the big boys, and go for the fat stacks. Now, a problem in North American Counter-Strike Global Offensive, at least it's presented as a problem, goes like this. Now that so much money has come into the scene, the players, the good players, are too spread out among the franchises, the organizations, and with all this money coming in, even despite such resources, we know that there's a problem because of buyouts. Buyouts and contracts are very expensive. It says everyone signed a contract, what do you do? Now, this is always presented as a problem, and because it's a problem, there's no obvious solution, and it's always presented as though you can't overcome it. Like, oh, is that player signed to a contract? Oh, forget about him then, right? You have to look for a different player. And that's what all these teams have done. They've signed up all these shit players because all the good ones were gone. It was a problem they couldn't overcome. But to quote the great North American battle rapper Fresco, where you see a brick, I see every ounce of possibility. Bars. So one of the things is, okay, so teams are all signed in North America right now. Thus, as you'd expect, that means all the top players are all signed to contracts. And if you want to buy a player who is already signed, you must pay the buyout clause in his fee. And since the owners foresaw, or in some cases were just greedy, they've put the buyouts at significantly more than the value of the player and his kind of salary amount that he'll receive throughout his career at their team. So the buyouts for signed players, incredibly expensive. So yes, on the behalf of the player, that does point to a small lack of foresight with some of the players who signed contracts within the last 3 to 4 months, and some of the lineups they did, where they didn't realise if they'd have waited a few months or not signed at that point, they'd have had better opportunities now where they could have signed to better organisations, had better lineups, and made more money actually than they signed for at that point in time. Even so, I don't blame those players. It was only very recently that players really started to see what their value was, because the value of players and teams, especially North American ones with the E-League now, has almost exponentially grown over the last 9 months, 6 months, 3 months. It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why people like TSM wanted to get out of TSM, because they wanted to get way bigger salaries when TSM didn't re-sign them 6 months ago, 9 months ago. So as a result, we're in a situation where what I don't understand from the public, and even from some people in the industry, is this suspicious way that they act as though, because everyone is signed right now, everyone signed at the same time. Well, obviously they didn't. That's the key point to make. As the scene was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, everyone who's available got signed to fantastic deals at that point in time. That's why Kingwin came along and were at one point in time, early last year, one of the highest paid teams in the world, because no one else was available. They were the best available lineup, and so they signed to the new big org that had all the money. So this is the thing. Just like in other sports, okay, so in the NBA, you sign for year-long periods. So it's always at the end of the year that someone's ending their contract. But not everyone's ending on the same year. One person ends in 2016, another guy ends in 2018. So as a result, in CS, it's even less like that. Because obviously people who signed in August, their contract probably will end in this August. So in CS, it's even better. It's month by month that some of these people will be available. People, players, and other teams and orgs need to start being aware of when this timeline is. Because, okay, the E-League starts in the latter half of May, so everyone wants to have their lineup sorted by then. People who signed, that means last May, say early May, May 1st, will be available by then to be signed for nothing. You won't have to pay a buyout. There will be zero buyout fee. Once their contract ends, you can just come to them, say, would you like to join my team? Here's the salary amount. Here's who you'll be playing with. Here's the bonuses I offer. They can sign that day with no buyout. So you can now get some top players if their last contract was signed in May. Likewise, April, March, obviously they'll be available sooner. Now, everyone obviously didn't sign that long ago. Many people have re-signed since then, or signed their contract after, let's say July, August, whatever it might be. So those people aren't going to be available until after the fact. But here's the thing to think. Okay, sure, many people re-signed since then, not realizing the incredible value they would have as players and teams now. But that's where the problem becomes a good thing. The thing here is, at the moment, while everyone's signed, it's a problem, because we say to ourselves, this is the excuse everyone uses, the reason why NA doesn't have a top team is because all the talent is spread out. And I agree to a degree, because when I looked at the talent in NA and I tried to make a video, I put it up there, which was making my NA super team, I did it without considering buyouts and all the rest of it, just if you could have all the player pool available to you. And my super team, as far as I remember, actually featured players from 4 different teams. Because it was Roker, Skadoodle, Freakazoid, I think it was Freakazoid, right? Yeah, Freakazoid, Nitro, and Hiko. So I had Team Liquid, Cloud9, Complexity. Maybe I only had 3 teams then. Not sure. Anyway, let's see. Complexity, Cloud9, Freakazoid, Cloud9, Team Liquid. Yeah, should be. Maybe I had a different player. That's the problem. I might have had a 5th one there. But you see, the point is that even in my super team, it was spread out among teams. And so the buyouts alone to make this team would be prohibitive. Or you'd have to have a lot of confidence this would be a good team. Or that the team's value would be worth a lot more in a year because CS is a game and esports as a field's gotten bigger. So the reason why I say this isn't a problem and why it will lead to its own solution is because, again, we can take the example from traditional sports. So in traditional sports, what happens is you get a situation where free agency occurs, which is when your contract ends, you are now a free agent, nobody has you signed, and so teams can come to you and court you and say, here's an offer, another team can make an offer, you can play the teams off each other, you can see which the best offer is, you can think about it. So from about 3 to 4 months from this period now, there should be a timeline running for players, especially if they want to think about who might be their teammates, and teams and organizations, because teams might want to get players and orgs obviously want to get players or entire team lineups, as to who the good to very good players are and when they become available based on their contract running out. Now, if the players are smart, they themselves will keep a track of this, and they will even look who's coming up before me and after me and what might be available for me, and they won't just re-sign with their org a month before the contract ends, when the team will want you to sign because they'll go, hey, I'll give you more money and more salary, all these benefits. But the reason why they want you to sign right then and not the day after you become a free agent is because they don't want other teams to court you and get to you first. They want to re-sign you before you realize your value when you see the offers you get, and therefore they're actually going to get a better deal by giving you more money now than you might do if you could get twice as much elsewhere. So hopefully the players become smart about this. Maybe they see this video and they realize, I won't re-sign, I will let teams court me. I will ask my current team, my teammates, what do you plan on doing this team? Are we going to change lineup? Is this good enough to go? Do you think this is a good enough team to go where we're going? I'll talk to the org. What are your plans? Will you put star players in the lineup? Will you spend a lot of money to get people that I need? And then I'll talk to the other teams. What would you do for me if I joined your team? Hopefully players understand their value in free agency, which was the key thing that changed the game within the NBA and made players get paid a lot more and be able to choose their own destiny in terms of where they went. Then teams and organizations should be finding out which teams are available, which players are available, and starting to plan 2 to 3 months before the free agency to get their roster in a situation where it's ready to receive the right player that they want. Or the resources, the money, the things they can offer, the benefits, the streaming deals they can give them, sponsorship things. These things should all be getting ready to be able to court this player. Because when this happens, you can have a scenario like in the NBA. So in the NBA, there were 3 examples I can give you in recent time. So a few years ago, when LeBron James signed with the Miami Heat, before that, 3 years before, we were having news stories and teams were already planning to free up space on their roster, because in the NBA you have a salary cap, free up space on their roster but still have good pieces, so that when the summer came that LeBron was available, I think it was the summer of 2011, they could approach him and say, listen, I'm the New York Knicks. Like, if you come here, you have a very big platform to play on. It's a big market team. You'll be able to get sponsorships perhaps a lot easier because you have a lot of eyes on you. The media coverage will be excellent. If you were to bring a championship here, it would mean a lot more. Would transfer to a lot more sponsor dollars. We have these pieces in place in the team so far. Here's our coach. Here's what we're willing to do. We maybe sign this player to come with you, if you will. You make a really attractive offer, and a bunch of teams did this. And in the end, he went to the Heat, where he went with a number of other star level players, and obviously made this big 3 team, which won a couple of championships and went to 4 finals. Likewise, a year or so later, it was Carmelo Anthony. He actually didn't wait till free agency in that particular case. But if he had have waited till the end of the season, he would have had this free agent situation. In fact, he actually just got forced to transfer, which wasn't so good for either team. But he could have waited the next year, and he would have had the same scenario. A number of teams would have come to him, the Lakers, a bunch of other, and they would have all made their offers. Here's what could have happened. And the most recent example I'll give you is LaMarcus Aldridge, who was an all-star level player and has been a pretty good player throughout his career at the Portland Trail Blazers, and in the end he went to the Spurs. So the team makes the most attractive offer they can. They tell them what they'll do for them, tell them what it would be like if they came there, tell them the reason why he should come and join their team over re-signing or going somewhere else. You show them the pieces you have already. Now, this is a big upside. This is why I say it's not a problem if you view it the correct way as a possibility, an opportunity. The reason why this is a big, big upside for NA that no one else has, not a downside, is because if they use it the right way, they have an advantage over all the other regions. First of all, collectively, there is more money in the NA scene to sign NA players and teams than any other country in the entire world in CSGO. France doesn't have that much money. Sweden doesn't have that much money. CIS countries don't have that much money. No one has that much money. NA has loads of money to support many teams and a number of elite level teams if they put the right lineups together. In Sweden, there's only a couple of options if you're a Swedish player, and it's rare that you'll see people go with that international option, go to a G2 type team where they have the money and they're willing to make an international lineup. I mean, NIP had an international lineup last year, and they've gone away from it and chosen to go back to a Swedish lineup. So it's rare in those other countries that you're ever going to see that. You'll never see Envious or Titan go with some crazy foreign option, most likely. They'll stick with people who are French speaking, so that limits their options. North America has all these organizations with resources and people who want to get in from Dota 2 and League of Legends as big orgs and get CSGO teams. Not only that, they have a huge player base of pros who all speak English and could, in theory, all be in these teams. So the options are incredibly wide. They should be able, if they play it correct from the player end and the org end and the team end, be able to create at least 2 legitimate international contenders. I'm talking teams who at the worst would make the playoffs of majors, and if they have good runs, could be making the semis, if not better, at major tournaments. At least 2, because they could put together 10 lineups. They could put together 5 decent lineups. They could put together 2 very good lineups. This is what needs to happen. So first of all, players need to be more aware and understand their value in free agency. Stop acting as units of players, as friends, as teammates, and all this sort of thing. Yes, people do that once they're signed to their contract in traditional sports. Once you're on the team, yes, now I'm a team player, all this. But when it's just you have to act in your best interest. What is your best chance for your career to succeed? Should you go somewhere else to get more money for your individual value right now? Overstaying with these players who you might like, but you won't get very far, or it's not a good deal that they currently have, that they're signed to with your org. Teams need to start planning and find out when someone's available in free agency so that they can be ready and shape and mold a good offer and a good team that guy would want to come and join your team. If you want to get Skadoodle, don't wait around and just say, oh, Skadoodle, here's like lots of money. Lots of money might be enough for him. I don't know. But if you really want to get him, what you probably want to do is craft the lineup and say, look, we've got this great M3 rifler here. We've got this really good clutch round player. We've got a decent in-game leader for you. You know what we need? A really strong AWPer. And so we're willing to pay you a lot of money. We envision you being the star AWPer who'd get the AWP drop from all the time. Come to our team. It's better than the current situation you're in. You'll win championships. And we see a future with you as our star franchise player. You put the offer like that, you got a way better chance he's coming because you give him money, teammates, better chance to succeed. Also, you can tell them something like for example, if you're a lesser team, you get a lot of money and some good teammates, and you tell them, listen, and this is a new brand, so you're going to have a chance to build this brand up, and it's going to be associated with you forever. One day I'll sign it so that you get equity in the team in 2 years. There's all different ways you can entice these players. But at the moment, everyone's stuck in the notion that if the player's signed now, he's off the table, forget about him, just sign the next best available person. And as a result, you've ended up with teams that, on paper, are kind of abominations for how much money has probably been spent on them. Teams like TSM's lineup, some of the call players we've heard about. Echo Fox presumably didn't have to pay big buyouts. They buy another team, but they don't have a great team, even though they have Sean Gers. So all the pieces are there in NA. The money's there in NA. The players are waiting in NA, saying they want to succeed. The opportunity's there. E-League, majors, all these competitions. So now people have to treat this as a sport and understand the rules of how the sport works in that sense. And that if contracts exist, there's a way around that. You find out when the contract ends. That's better than paying the massive buyout or not doing it. Those aren't the two options. There's a one in between. You wait until it ends, then you use the money you would have done for the buyout to make an extremely good offer, and you won't even pay as much as the buyout most likely. So if people start thinking this way, North American region in CSGO has a massive advantage on the rest of the world. And with all that money, they should be starting to make use of it. I mean, there's a famous quote that with all the resources in the world, if you don't know how to use them, you won't ever succeed. And there's a picture that I tweeted the other day where it's a guy and he's got all these ladders and he wants to look over a wall, but he's just stacked the ladders up horizontally, he's standing on them, and he can't quite see over. Obviously, one ladder would allow him to see right over the wall. This is the sort of scenario they're in. It's not a problem. Stop crying about it. It could actually be a massive boon and benefit for the North American scene.